Last month, the States of Guernsey passed the legalisation of gay marriage, though it's unlikely any ceremonies will take place in the island before 2017 at the earliest. Why? So what needs to be done to take it from here, and what will LGBT charity Liberate be doing in the meantime? We have three of their number looking healthy. They're glowing in the studio after our discussion about the difference between healthy and nutritious. I might touch on that with them later. Pippa McCarthy, Oliver Davis and Ellie Jones, welcome.
Hi.
Lovely. Oh, you can do better than that, can't you? Hello.
Hi.
Jenny.
Now, first of all, I want to know why no ceremonies will be taking in place in the island before 2017. Can you outline that, Ellie?
Yeah, sure. It's really just red tape. There's a chance that it actually could get pushed back way further if the new states didn't carry through with the timeline that the current states are doing, but that's not likely to happen because we think everyone's pretty much on our side.
And Pippa, what did you feel when I think it was a couple of people in the States voted against the idea?
I felt sorry for them, really. You know, I mean, the ignorance, lack of education, lack of research, such a pity.
But people are entitled to their view, aren't they? If somebody has been brought up perhaps in an overtly religious background and that's integral to their sense of morals, their own belief system, then they are equally entitled to their view, aren't they?
I was brought up in an overtly religious household. Enough said.
Explain your situation.
My father was a vicar.
OK. Says it all, really. Ollie, what about you? What were your thoughts when a couple of people voted against the idea?
Yeah, well, I think it was 7 deputies that sort of voted against. And, I mean, that is sort of completely... I respect their right to vote whichever way they want, and I'm sure they feel that that's part of the reason that they were elected into their position. But from my point of view, working with the Hub and the Speak Out group that I work with, we sent an email to all the deputies outlining what the young people that I work with feel about the decision, which Gavin St-Pierre very kindly read out as part of the state's debate. Mm-hmm. And I do, I mean, from my perspective, I very much think about the children, man. But, you know, the next generation of people who the lawmakers are building an island for, I think they're the ones that they should be held accountable to.
Ellie?
Yeah, I was actually sat
absolutely.
in the Royal Court when it happened. Well, for the whole day we went and went along and listened, and it was very much an age difference, really. It was very much the older generation that it's just something you have to remember was illegal within their time. You know, it takes a long time for somebody to change their mind, but some of the speeches that were made were just amazing, and it was a full and proper debate. Everybody got their say, and the result was amazing.
So you felt passionate enough about this to go and sit in the States Chamber for the duration?
Yeah, for sure.
Let's go back to something you said, Ollie. It's about the children. What are young children saying to you? And I'm interested because Facebook, Pippa, as you know, is littered with psychologically traumatic or traumatised people who weren't accepted, weren't believed in their youth, and you know they're trying to make recompense now. They're trying to build their lives on the strength of huge misunderstandings when they were at school, when they were younger. Ollie?
Well, I do genuinely think that the young people in Guernsey at the moment that I deal with who come to the Speak Out groups are... I mean, I think as far as the LGB, the lesbian, gay and bisexual community, a lot of work has been done in the last sort of 20 years to feel included, to feel respected. I think there is generally a sense that there's not massive homophobia within our school systems here. There's perhaps a fear from some of the teaching staff, and I think that's probably because political correctness and what you can get done for is quite high, and so there's a willingness to avoid a subject, perhaps, and that's me assuming. I think the big step forward now is the sort of the gender identity side of the work that Liberate are doing and that the Hub are doing.
And I think it's about teachers allowing each child to celebrate their own uniqueness. Surely that should be key, Pippa.
Oh, absolutely. But then teaching's a very difficult job. I mean, you know, we need to educate the whole population, not just the children. As Ollie said, the youngsters coming forward, actually, you know, they're almost there anyway. It's the teachers that need some... I mean, training is a harsh word, but maybe to work with us and we can discuss things with them, we can help them understand. Because some of the teachers are of the generation of those that voted against. And as I said, with the state's members that voted against, education is the key.
But it's not a generation thing in all areas.
No, it's not.
With the greatest of respect, you're of the generation that may possibly...
I'm a good deal older than virtually every single state's member in the States. Yes.
And you are in a heterosexual relationship, in a strong marriage. You and Neil have been married for many years. One of your sons is gay.
My eldest son is gay, yeah.
So you have a great understanding of this. Can you just summarise, we've heard it before, but just summarise for those who didn't hear it, the difficulties that your son encountered, so we can get an understanding of...
Yeah, I mean, you have to remember that Jamie is coming up to 40, so when he was a teenager, things were much more difficult, particularly in Guernsey, which is probably why he now lives on the mainland. But, I mean, some of the stuff that was thrown at him made me more angry than it made him. I mean, you've got a kid. If somebody is horrible to William, it makes you very angry. William might shrug and say, "Oh, never mind, Mum." And that was James's attitude. It was James's female friends that used to look after him. But that's back in the day. It's a while ago now. And Ollie has experience of what's going on now.
Pippa gets more wound up than we do when things are flowing at us.
Yes, I do. I get very cross. But
what have you got cross about recently?
Have you got all day?
Am I allowed?
You can say whatever you want.
A fair amount of time. I think it's important that you
it didn't make
freely.
Me cross. It made me weary. I got a newspaper cutting from the Daily Telegraph, which is a newspaper I would never, ever buy, not in any circumstances, whatever, pointing out the error of my ways. Anonymous. I think I put it on Facebook. I'm sure you read the comment that I put on Facebook.
I might have seen it, yes.
Yes, and I'm... Anybody can come along and say, "I don't agree with you, let's discuss it." Fine, I'll discuss it with them. But don't hide behind name and address supplied or anonymous.
What did the cutting say? Can you...
it was something to do with Peter Hitchens. I didn't actually read it. It was something to do with a God book or something. I screwed it up and wished that we had a fire that I could use to light.
Well, I mean, that is the problem of many people, isn't it? Many people are open-minded and liberated in their thinking, and including many members of the church now.
Yeah.
And the whole ethos of Christianity is to treat others as you would be treated yourself, to accept all. And there is a huge discrepancy between certain thinking within the church, is there not?
I mean, Liberate has worked very closely with faith groups. We've had some really positive feedback and work done by faith groups in the island. Not all of them, but the major ones have been fantastic. We were really pleasantly surprised, weren't we?
Mm-hmm. They did sort of, they made the point that that the church does need to evolve as well, because society evolves, and they wanted to open that dialogue, and we hope to continue that dialogue for a long time to come.
What did you make of the Archbishop of Canterbury's apology last week? Pippa, you've got you're not going to talk about it? For me... After the horses bolted?
Finished any contact I want to have with that.
Why?
We're getting off-piste from the point of view of Guernsey now, aren't we?
Not necessarily, because there are a lot of religious people and a lot of people with fairly bigoted points of view.
I don't understand how he can work so hard to keep the churches, such as Uganda, who one of their bishops wants to kill gay people, in the Anglican Communion, and penalise the Episcopalians who are doing what Christianity should be doing and apologising was just so hypocritical. It was unbelievable.
Let's take what Ollie said earlier about the younger generation. And, people like yourself, open-minded people like yourself, don't have a problem with any of this. So does it actually matter, Ellie, whether or not we educate the more mature generation? Isn't it a case of people doing what they need to do anyway and ignoring what many would deem to be bigoted views? And again, we do have to respect the rights of people to have their own viewpoint.
Yeah, I think education and speaking with people about it, because a lot of the debate that went on within the state, people spoke about a journey that they've been on, over, even as there was a gentleman, Louis Jean?
From Alderney.
From Alderney, and even in 2 weeks previously, he'd been one of the 2 people, I think, that had voted against same-sex couples being able to adopt. And he'd got back home, and basically his family educated him very quickly in what they thought about his opinion. And he literally he touched me so much with the speech that he made. And he went on a very quick journey. Some people have gone on a longer one, like Jonathan Lattock. He's explained to us the journey that he's been on, and he's,
and Peter Harwood too. I mean, I was very touched by Peter Harwood's speech.
So I think people do, you can't just ignore that people have those views, and they're entitled to whatever views they want. Whether they should impact on what happens in my life and on the state, I don't ask or impact on what the church does. It doesn't have a relevance to me personally, so I don't see why it should have a relevance on my life.
It must be very bruising, though, for anyone within the LGBT community to have to keep banging the same drum.
We do. I mean, we all say, and Ellie's always pulling me back from opening my mouth.
Ellie?
Sometimes. I absolutely agree that people are entitled to their opinions, but if those opinions hurt others, and the way you express them hurt others, we have to pull them up on those opinions, because, opinions can be incredibly damaging if badly expressed, and people must think about that, as they must with feminism, as they must with any kind of prejudice against a section of society.
It is about prejudice, isn't it?
Yes.
It is about stopping prejudice and
informing ignorance.
And I still maintain that when people put their heads on their own individual pillows at the end of the day, they're not really thinking about anything other than themselves and their nearest and dearest. So does it really matter what anyone else is doing if it doesn't break the law and if they're being kind and generous to other people, Ollie?
I think it's a difficult kind of concept, isn't it? People on both sides of any argument become passionate about it. I mean, for me, again, I don't come from any faith from my family, but that kind of the lightning bolt from it is that kind of do unto others kind of philosophy.
Yes.
And regardless of whether that's a faith or a philosophy or just a choice, like really it's the impact. And I see, speaking to the young people that I work with, the impact of words. And, in our schools we do have the kind of the phrase that's so gay being bandied around about many things that have got nothing to do with their sexuality or people of the same gender finding anything attractive of each other.
But isn't that okay to use that term, oh, that's so gay, in the terms of, it might not necessarily mean something that's detrimental to gay people. It might just be one of those terms like it's so sick or don't be so gay in the old-fashioned sense of the word gay.
And if everyone in the society used Jenny as a negative word and went, oh my God, that's so Jenny, ugh, that's so Jenny. Like at some point Jenny's going to turn around and go, hang on, I think that word shouldn't be used like that. As the gay community turns around and goes, doing extra homework or dropping something isn't negative, and it's not the word, it's that word meaning implies a negativity, and to a young gay person growing up, that is going to have an impact.
It's just very subtle in the way of putting someone down. I don't think people that use it realise that's what's happening at all.
No.
But it's the same as somebody going, oh, you scream like a girl. Nobody actually, women don't take particular offence to it, but when you actually think about it, it's like, actually, that's not, if I scream like a girl, I'm allowed to scream like a girl. If I run like a girl, I run like a girl. But if somebody does an impression of somebody running like a girl, it doesn't look quite like a girl running. There's a famous advert about it.
If it's used as pejorative, if it is used to criticise or to put down, it shouldn't be used.
Yeah, don't be such a big girl's blouse, that sort of thing.
That,
I remember doing an interview with Liberate, I think it was with Liberate or along these lines, a few years ago now. And after that, I received a telephone call from somebody who said, but how, this is all very well, but how does anyone propose to teach sex education about, or to children? And I think I can answer that, because from the age of 7 I've talked freely, not about in depth to my son, but from the age of 7 I've mentioned my gay friends. He doesn't think he's gay, but I said if you do become gay when you're older, I just want you to be happy. It's just a matter of course with a child. They take it on board, and I just wonder how many other parents are like that.
It's not about sex education, it's about relationship education. And
Yes,
the difference is there's lots of people... Of which I have now tried my best to avoid the comment section on the website of the Guernsey Press, because
I don't even go there.
I spend too much of my time kind of getting upset. But there's this whole thing about kind of, are we going to teach our children about what, the mechanics of anything? And I'm kind of like, do you know what, why don't we just tell them to care for themselves, care for each other, form loving relationships, and absolutely
don't put yourself at risk of disease. I mean, I've got a male gay friend who the mechanics of that wouldn't be relevant. It's not about that. Although he is gay, and yeah. Talking of the various social media websites, I'm not going to name one in particular. But a friend of mine alerted to me one yesterday. I drew my attention to it. And it was about the announcement of the Gay Pride March, which I will come on to. And then lots of people were saying, well, why can't we have a heterosexual Pride March? You're all nodding.
Well, I had it sent to me on the Facebook page. And to be fair, we don't tend to bother to get involved, because somebody always pipes up and says that. Gay Pride was not born out of a need to celebrate being gay. It was born out of a need to... educate people about the persecution that was going on at the time. It's now seen as a celebration of gay culture. If you don't want to come and celebrate this big, massive party that we're going to be having that's going to be really, really fun, don't come. It's like going to the cinema. If the movies that you want to see is on, go and see that. You don't have to go and see the one you don't want to see. Don't really understand why people should be grateful that they've never needed one.
But also, I'd be more than happy to go and have a great party at Straight Pride.
Yeah, if somebody wants to organise one,
if that community creates it. How great would that be?
If they want to organise it, we might come along. I mean, but doesn't virtually every party in this world is for heterosexuals? We're reclaiming our side of having fun.
I don't think a straight Pride March would be nearly as fun.
I think there is actually a history of somebody. They tried to do a big Facebook group, and they tried to get a straight Pride together, and it quite famously failed and fell on its backside. And I think 10 people turned up. It was in one of the major cities. It was in Cologne or somewhere, and just people went, yeah, we're not really interested in doing this. It's
almost an insult, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's not something we're trying to throw in people's face. We're trying to show the gay community that they're supported by their family and friends.
I have lived in London for a number of years, and the Gay Pride March is something else. It's like a carnival atmosphere throughout. And yes, exactly. It is a political message, but it is wonderful, absolutely incredible. So when is it?
It's the 10th of September.
Where?
It's we're still working out the actual the parade route, but the party is going to be in Market Square. Yeah, it's going to be fun. I can't say too much because we have some really big plans, but it's all going to come down to sort of fundraising and although the backup that we need from corporates, sponsors if they're listening, which then hopefully we can use sort of fundraising money afterwards for all the big plans that we have to finish up with, which we brought Ollie in to have a chat with as well about but yeah, a lot of it's to do with actually fundraising so that we can do all the projects we want to do.
So this is the Gay Pride March, and
it's a parade, not a march.
Parade. Oh, it's a parade.
Yes, we are having a parade.
Pardon. That's because of the legacy of my living in London. It used to be called the Gay Pride March. I do apologise.
No. We want to make sure it's referred to as a parade.
Ollie, there's supposed to be a message on my system, but it hasn't come up on my system. So if you'd be so kind as to get it in for me. How do I click refresh? He's shaking his head at me. Hold on.
Control R.
Thank you. Thanks. Right.
That's all right.
Now, I've got this here before. Oh, yes. It's come up. Thank you. I've got this, which was a news item that Ollie gave to me from yesterday. This was from yesterday, Ollie, wasn't it? I've done it.
Oh, you figured it out.
Ellie told her how to do it.
Ellie just said, press Control R. Peter, thank you. I'll read your message out in a moment. But first, this news item from yesterday. Heterosexual couple challenge civil partnerships ban. A heterosexual couple have begun a legal fight at the High Court against the ban on members of the opposite sex entering into civil partnerships. Charles Keaton and Rebecca Steinfield from London say their case is a basic issue of discrimination and equality. They said they want to commit to each other in a civil partnership as it focuses on equality. The Civil Partnership Act 2004, this is a UK act, requires that partners be two people of the same sex. It grants gay couples legal rights similar to those given to married couples. The government has said it consulted on the issue and found a lack of consensus, so doesn't plan to make any changes to the law. Mr. Keaton and Miss Steinfield want their relationship recognised in law, but they don't want to get married. Actually, I'd say that would be a good idea for many people. Saying nothing at this stage. Miss Steinfield told the BBC, "We see each other as partners in life and want to be partners in law. We want to be able to celebrate our relationship with each other and formalise our commitment to each other within a social institution which is modern, which is symmetrical, and that focuses on equality, which is exactly what a civil partnership is." In 2014, they were told by Chelsea Register Office that they could not register a notice of intention to form a civil partnership because they were a man and a woman. And in the same year, the Same-Sex Couples Marriage Act extended the right to marry to gay couples who can now choose between civil partnership and marriage. The couple contend that the same choice should be available to all couples. But what do we think here in the studio?
I think I was reading something about it. I think, yes, they should be allowed, but it's a big faff to put a new law in. A lot of money, a lot of cost, for not many people wanting it for something that was a stepping stone anyway. We still have two separate laws, a same-sex one and a heterosexual one for marriage. And I'm not sure if I'm right, Ollie, you'll probably be able to tell me better. But isn't it that you can basically automatically convert your civil partnership into a marriage anyway now? So they'd have one and then it would go, oop, marriage.
So my oldest converted his.
So I'm in a civil partnership with my husband, for the want of a better word, and I hope that word doesn't affect anybody else. But we're civil partnered, and the only reason we haven't converted, which I think is like a £4 fee for admin, was because living in Guernsey, there was an issue with how you sort of do it if you're abroad, you can go to the British consul, but we don't have a consul, so you have to be able to do it in like a registry office in the UK. And whenever we go over, we're having too much time spending with family and friends than to go to a registry office again.
James and his husband converted theirs within days of the new law coming through, and it's just simple in the UK.
But for Ollie and Ben,
it's more complicated because you live here.
But it also wouldn't be recognised here, would it? So
not yet.
So it's kind of pointless anyway. So you might as well wait until it comes in over here and then do it then.
Yeah, I'm not, there's an implication. There will be a long-term implication on same-sex marriage here about, which I think is part of the thing they will iron out, which is this kind of year of getting it right, is about how they recognise and deal with same-sex marriages from other countries, and that is just a very complicated process that clever people have to do that I have no idea how it works.
Well, it's for the law
but
officers.
I think there is an option, I think, on the island, and the union civil that was first kind of brought up in this was basically the idea of a civil marriage for everyone, and that has been kind of shot down through the consultation route, and we're going down the marriage equality line.
It's now not equal, is it? If it had been a civil partnership for everybody,
there is a potential. I think there is. My understanding, and it is only an understanding, is that Guernsey could be very progressive and alter the law they have rather than creating a new one. So there could be an amendment to the law that takes out the phrase "a marriage is between one man and one woman" and just "a marriage is between two consenting adults."
Two people.
I don't think that's what they're going to do. There's my understanding.
Would you like them to do
I'd love
that?
them
It'd
to
be
do
great.
that. It would be amazing.
And that is
Brilliant.
actually, to go back to the adoption law that has been changed, that is an amendment to a current law. And I don't know, and I'm not intelligent enough to know, but there is you can amend a law here, and Guernsey has the opportunity to be a tiny island that's leading the way as far as equality is concerned.
Just summarise what that would mean.
It just means that there is one law to get married.
let's take you back in time. I'd like you to forget, for the purposes of this hypothetical conversation, your dad was a vicar, Pippa McCarthy, and Neil has just wooed you. He's just, taken you out for dinner. What did he do to capture your heart? What was his chat-up line, love?
Well, I've told you before, I think, that it was his voice.
So there he was, singing to you. You fell in love with
Not to me,
Neil.
no.
Oh, okay.
In a pub.
Okay, so you were in a pub.
Was he drunk?
And you decided...
I don't think so.
If you had your time again, would you prefer to be in a marriage, or would you prefer to be in a civil partnership with Neil?
So long as we were living together, I don't particularly mind what it's called. I mean, what's this hang-up with this word marriage?
It comes from the church.
It actually doesn't.
No, it doesn't. No.
In people's minds, in people's perception, the word marriage is about the union of a man and a woman for the purposes of producing children.
It was pinched by the church. It wasn't originated by the church.
Expand on that?
It was a legal contract between usually two fathers, landowners, who wanted to amalgamate their ownership of tracts of land. So one has a daughter, one has a son. So they think, let's marry them off. They don't actually consult their children. They're just, that's what you're going to do because this makes this nice big bit of land that we can own. I know this is radio, so nobody can see what I'm doing.
There's mime happening.
Expansive hand gestures. It was also done with royalty in countries, wasn't it?
Countries,
The church has only been involved since, 1800? No.
In the present form since the 18th, 17th century. Oh God, I've read it all, Amy, and I've forgotten it all.
Well, I'm going to play you a piece of music now, and we're going to talk about many other things to do with plans from Liberate, the charity, the LGBT charity Liberate. We're going to look a little bit more about the Gay Pride Parade. And any ideas that I might come up with to contribute to that in a brainstorming kind of fashion. After this, from Sam Smith, and all viewpoints gratefully received, within reason. Please be nice about it. If you want to call and put your two penn'orth across, 200 373 is the number to call. I'm also going to read Peter's message after this. This is BBC Radio Guernsey. I'm in the studio with Pippa McCarthy, Oliver Davis and Ellie Jones from the LGBT charity Liberate. For anyone who's been living on another planet, Ollie, what does LGBT stand for?
LGBT is lesbian, gay, bisexual and transgender. But for my youth group, it's LGBTQAISPD. And that's, as a dyslexic youth worker, that's very difficult to go into schools and talk about.
What do all those stand for?
I can't do it. I have to do it in order. Lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, questioning. LGBTQ. A is asexual, I is intersex, P is pansexual, S is straight, and D is demisexual.
Ooh, demi, I've not heard that one.
I've not
Hold
heard
on a
that one.
minute, go back to after T. What was after T?
Oh, can you write it down so I can
Yeah.
see the letters? This is literally the only way. I do this as a presentation in schools for, and they're all written on a big
LGBT.
PowerPoint. QAISPD. So Q is for questioning, somebody questioning their sexuality or gender identity.
Okay, we can all understand that.
Asexual, somebody who has no sexual desire in any direction. That's not a celibacy or a choice, that is a lack of sexuality or sexual desire. You can also be agendered, but that's quite complicated. I is intersex, which means somebody who is born biologically both male and female reproductive systems. That person is usually assigned a gender at birth, usually at the doctor's recommendation. Lots of people who are intersex can grow up with the parents not knowing as well. It can be a purely internal affair. That's not what I mean.
I know what you mean.
And it usually only comes out through other medical procedures sort of taking place, and that obviously has a massive impact later on in life. S for us is a straight supporter, somebody who's heterosexual. So the youth groups that I run are open to everybody. They're an equality group. So if you've got a straight friend who wants to come along, they do. P is pansexual. This is somebody who has who isn't worried about gender or the gender that somebody was born with, and just falls in love with people. I think the slogan that I really love for it is hearts, not parts.
But isn't that bisexual, though?
No, well, no, because if somebody's bisexual, it may not mean if they meet somebody who is transgendered, so they may have issues about kind of being in a sexual relationship with somebody who was born a different gender than how they present, it means that you're less worried about the bits, the parts, and you are literally falling in love with people. And demisexual...
Something we should all do, really.
Miley Cyrus came out famously, didn't she, as the last year as pansexual.
Pansexual.
Yeah, pansexual is sort of, it's the new term sort of that's being used a lot. A lot of young people are identifying as pansexual, even as a statement of sort of almost support, going, actually, it doesn't matter. I'll meet the person and fall in love with the person, and be less hung up on what I can and can't do.
Didn't they do a survey, and it was something like over 50% of youth today actually identify as something other than straight?
It's higher. It was about 90% say that they aren't 90% of young people would say they're not 100%. Anything, either 100% gay or 100%.
That's going to help me enormously, because the amount of time I've wasted trying to chat up gay men is absolutely my gaydar's bad. P, it stands for pansexual. Yeah. What about D?
D is demisexual, and my definition on this isn't great. Demisexual is somebody that will needs to form a deep and loving relationship, non-sexual relationship first. So like somebody who's asexual, but then they will consider, or they are open to the idea that loving a romantic relationship could become sexual further down the line. So
a demisexual is like a cautious pansexual.
Apart from that picture of a panda in my head, but yes. A cautious pansexual panda. That's demisexual.
You're deviating.
I know, sorry. It's that kind of, the love is more important, but there's a consciousness that a sexual relationship could happen from that.
You're allowed to deviate as long as there's no hesitation or repetition, okay?
In that case, the Q also is, a lot of people are reclaiming the word queer, so a lot of the, especially within the youth groups, gender queer, that's a phrase that is used a lot, and it's
Isn't
nice.
That derogatory though to oneself?
It's only derogatory if it's said in a derogatory way, and that's how it came to be seen.
But queer
people
means
are taking
odd.
that back. No, it just means different.
But also
different to the norm.
Queer culture is sort of from the 60s, was very much a big part of. Is a big part of movement in art, like Andy Warhol and everything like that. The queer culture was massive, and it sort of through the 90s where. There was a lot of issues around homophobia, especially in youth schools and stuff. That word became the negative, naughty word, but it is much more being reclaimed by the community.
I suspect there'll be some people with not such open minds as those in the studio, 4 of them, that will be saying, why do they have to have all of those descriptions?
Because they want them.
And are there people fitting all of those descriptions?
When I set up the youth group, I set up an LGBT youth group, and from working with young people in schools and in the youth group, they kept on coming along saying, where's my letter? And I will make that acronym as long as I need to. If somebody comes up to me and tells me I identify as this and I want it to be represented, I will put it on there. The one that I should include is N for non-binary, which is a term that I'm not great at using as part of as a youth worker, and is one that I'm really forcing myself to remember and bring in to the conversation.
What does that mean?
Oh no!
I can help.
Can you do that one non-binary? Thank you.
I've
My definition is rubbish at it.
It's taken me about 1.5 years to get my head around everything trans-wise. I'm no expert, but I've gone on a massive journey, because although we get all the letters put together, the LGBT especially, you have to remember that the LGB is about sexuality and the T is about gender. So the non-binary is basically people that don't identify with a particular gender in general. It's the easiest way to describe it.
So binary would be male and female. Non-binary is not either male or female. And
isn't that pansexual?
No, because that's to do with sexuality.
Gender identity and sexuality are two separate...
So you could have a non-binary pansexual person.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very easy to understand when you take the time to do it, everybody.
And that's the time that through the work that I do with the Hub, that I'm trying to put into schools. We're doing assemblies, we're doing PSHE lessons.
And this is all coming from youngsters who say, this is me, this is what I want to be represented as, this is how I'd like to represent myself.
Yeah, Hub and Bernard are only needs-driven and only responsive to the young people in Guernsey. And we're really lucky that Speak Out from the LGBT group for the Hub, that Liberate want to work with us, and that we're combining together to hopefully move forward and create a really good culture.
And there are also it's not just about the youngsters. It's about older people who all their lives have thought, what or who am I? Who can now actually identify a name for who they are and feel as if they belong somewhere. I mean, that Ellie and I have gone on an incredible learning curve when it comes to an awful lot of what Liberate is trying to do.
I need you to monitor this interview because Peter has said the BBC needs balance, and I'll tell you why in a moment. Do you think this interview that
BBC
I've
needs
done
balance in what area?
In the interview that I've conducted today, do you think I have been unbalanced in the interview? Do you think I have not represented the views of those people with religious views?
Aren't we just chatting? In general,
I think he's referring specifically to the way I've handled this interview, and I think at the start I made it very clear that we have to respect people who have religious views. In fact, that was the first thing I said to you, wasn't it? I'm just going to tell you why Peter says that. He says, you mentioned the phrase bigoted views. Peter would like to challenge me. He says a bigot is a person who has strong views and doesn't like the views of others, or someone who is intolerant to other people's views. Well, he thinks the word bigot could be reversed on your guests, or my guests today. That could be reversed to you, that they are intolerant of those who oppose their views. I think, again, that they made that clear, Peter, at the start of the interview. Peter says he still has a problem with the word marriage. He says it is still, to him, between a man and a woman. He does fear for children who are raised in an environment with both males or both females as parents. Historically, we don't have enough statistics of single-sex couples raising children to show what might happen to them in later life. He says certain things that happen in your childhood still affect you for the rest of your life. Finally, he'd like me to reconsider the word bigot because the word could be reversed to the panel. So let's look at the word bigot again. A bigot, in Peter's words, is a person who has strong views and doesn't like the views of others. I see exactly where you're coming from, Peter, and it could be perceived that my guests have strong views and don't like the views of others who are against you. Would I be right in saying that? So could you be accused of being a bigot as well?
I don't think so, because I think we said earlier on that we are... everybody is entitled to their opinion, but we do find it difficult when those expressed opinions hurt others.
But are you not, in expressing your views, hurting the views of those of a particularly strong religious persuasion or with certain
I don't think
views?
I've said that heterosexual people... anything negative about heterosexual people. I'm heterosexual myself. I don't think I've said anything nasty about them.
Is he saying that we've said something nasty about religion?
I think it's...
Is it about religion? I don't know. It depends. He hasn't actually said that he's a religious person.
No, it isn't. I don't think that's relevant. Thank you for calling, Peter, because that is a really interesting point of view. I think sometimes when letters are written in the press, and Pippa, you answer them, I think those people who aren't of your viewpoint might see that you're being negative towards their viewpoint. So, Peter, I thank you for calling. It's interesting.
If they put their letters in the press, I mean, we don't actually respond to ones that are anonymous on principle. If you haven't got the courage to put your name to a letter, you don't deserve to have it responded to. But if the name is there, if you put a challenging letter in the press, you can't sit back and think, that's okay. Now everybody else knows what I think. Nobody must challenge me or say they disagree. Well, that's silly.
Let's go on to Peter's comment where he said he still has a problem with the word marriage. And I think Peter represents the views of many people who feel the same way. He says it is still to him between a man and a woman. He does fear for children who are raised in an environment with both males or females as parents. Peter goes on to say, historically, we don't have enough stats of single-sex couples raising children to show what might happen to them in later life. He says certain things that happen in your childhood still affect you for the rest of your life. Oliver.
There are statistics, and there's a lot of well-documented research, and it is very new and it's very current and it is completely ongoing, but there is really good evidence that is researchable online that completely supports the actually the lack of impact, the lack of difference of same-sex couples to heterosexual couples, with one report pushing slightly children raised by lesbian couples as slightly healthier and more nurtured mentally by having two female parents. It's a tiny percentage increase on a few of what they were looking at, their indicators. It's growing up happy, healthy, and nurtured.
I watched a programme the other day on lots of people, men and women. Peter, you'll find this interesting. Becoming pregnant by anonymous sperm donors. Lots of people are doing that as well. That's not two males or two females. That's one of one gender.
There's also interesting to look at the statistics coming out in this lot from 2015 about UK adoption. The number of children in care is reducing. I know this is somebody who is going through the adoption process, and we are looking for children. So I know there are a lot less children sort of out for adoption. But that there is correlation to the increase in the LGBT community adopting. And there are massive financial implications, savings for government and LEAs by children being out of care. Not only the impact on the children themselves having a permanent, secure, loving family. They talk about forever homes, and it is the argument tends to be, well, what's going to happen when these kids are bullied? What are you going to say to them? And I'm going to say, it's that thing of going, well, we're going to say that the kids are bullying them are the ones that we need to be focusing on, not the kids that are being bullied.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, isn't it the most important thing that the parents, whatever sexual orientation they are from, should love their children and protect them from, say, bullying at school?
What's the difference between... my son is growing up in an all-female household at the moment. I just happen to live with my mother, and
exactly.
And he's got his grandmother and his mother living with him, and
my eldest sister's husband was killed when her children were 6, 10 and 12. She was a single mother, and look at what people say about single mothers. I can tell you, Angie gets very, very angry about the sort of single mother attitude.
I also there was one of the deputies when the speeches to do with marriage, and he stood up and publicly said that that he'd grown up in a household where his mum and dad had been married for 40 years, and come the end of just before his dad died, it turned out that his dad had basically hidden being gay the whole of his life. So he'd grown up in a straight household. When it wasn't, everyone was unhappy basically because they were forced into situations that they couldn't cope with.
We're running out of time, and I know you've got some issues that you'd like to put out there. And first of all, Ellie, could you tell us again about the fundraising that you need for, and also about this amazing ball?
So we're looking for corporate sponsors, fundraising, mainly to back up Channel Island Pride, which if we can then make some actual money out of Channel Island Pride, we can do some of the projects that we're looking at, which hopefully working with Ollie at the hub. We're doing an amazing exhibitionist ball up at the Duke of Richmond on the 30th of April. We're looking for corporate tables of 10. It's going to be, black tie, Mad Hatter's Tea Party crossed with steampunk and glitter beards, and extravagant night with an art
glitter
exhibition.
Beards, complete with their own natural antibiotics, apparently. How do we get tickets for the glitter ball?
Keep an eye on our Facebook page.
Okay, and so that's and also the Gay Pride Parade on the
10th of September.
You've got some news on education plans for Liberate, Pippa.
Well, I mean, this is what we want the funding for, so that we can put money into that education and cooperate with Ollie and everybody and get the education through, not just for the children and the teenagers, but for the people that are looking after and teaching them and bringing them up. I mean, that's very important to us. And we also want everybody to know that Liberate is still here after that vote for equal marriage, and we want to know when that law's coming through.
I'm thinking seminars for pensioners, actually. That would be a wonderful idea.
That'd be brilliant.
Well, I only say that because I had a 69-year-old man come out for the first time on this very programme, so that was one of my proudest moments on radio. Ollie, could you please tell us about Sixth Form News, please?
Yeah, we're launching a new LGBT plus youth group for sixth formers, going across all the different sixth form provisions on the island. It's currently being held at the Performing Arts Centre on a Tuesday evening from 4:30 till 6, and the Friday session is also running 4:30 to 6 at the Hub for 13 to 16-year-olds.
I can't thank you enough. It's been wonderful catching up with you all. Keep us up to date, promise me, with all of your news. Pippa McCarthy, Oliver Davis and Ellie Jones, thank you
Thank you
very much indeed. And
Thank
happy
you.
Year to you all.
And to you.